Alchemy 101, or let's call it Alchemy 1. I don't think I've ever completely gone to the full-on bare bones description of what alchemy is all about. So here goes. Starting with the word alchemy. Alchemy comes from the word chem, which is the old word for Egypt. Egypt used to be called Kemet. And what chem means is it used to refer to the dark sand that was in the region, and kind of flowed over into just kind of meaning dark. And Egypt was called Chem, or Al-Chem would mean from Egypt. Or if we break it down even further, that would mean from the dark sands, from the dark. So alchemy literally is, breaking it down all the way to the words, the word for from the darkness. And that's perfect because alchemy is about out of darkness comes the light. So you must, from the darkness, cultivate the light. That's as simple as it gets, and it's beautiful. And that's alchemy describes itself within its own name. So when we think about when we're born, we're incubating in this kind of quasi-dark place, coming from an unknown. We don't know where exactly we came from. It could have been all light. It could have been anything, something that we don't perceive. But because it's unknown, that's the dark. The dark is in the hidden. We don't know. We can't see it. We incubate in this half existence of quasi-dark, and then we're born into the light. But because we're born into the light, it is almost a prerequisite that through our lifetime, we somehow remember to go back down into the quote-unquote metaphorical dark in order to fully manifest this light experience. All right, so that's that. Now, what alchemy is in total, spectrum. Let's break down that was the definition of the word alchemy and the idea or concept behind it. From the darkness comes the light. From the unknown, from going into the unknown and acknowledging and exploring it, comes the wisdom of illumination. Now, within that that little circle of that simple circle explanation, what we have is the 7 principles, or the 7 natural laws. And this is most often referred to as the 7 Hermetic laws. Hermetic is a term for the great mind behind this revelation, this illumination, which was Hermes Trismegistus, or there's a lot of ways to pronounce it, but Hermes Trismegistus. And Hermes was a person and was other people and was Thoth, as in the emerald tablets of Thoth. And he was a messenger of the gods. He was a person. He also was kind of worshipped as a god in a way, and has been said to reincarnate and be other things and people and come back and could be here still. I kind of believe that that's possibly true. Relaying, instilling, and helping to cultivate the message from the gods, which would be the universal laws. The laws that we need to remember govern everything within the universe. And there's 7 of them. I'm going to attach a video that I got, that I've watched many videos. This is a good one, a lecture by a guy who spells it out very clearly. And he puts an eighth hidden principle in there that I'll touch very briefly on, which I really think just refers in general to what I just described as the word alchemy, what that means, holds it all in. But I'm going to put the link in there, and I really highly recommend watching that lecture, that live lecture, and going on to watch more lectures where what I'm about to say can be really fully clarified. But Hermes was a great teacher. He brought just this incredible consciousness. And if you ever read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and Hermes are one and the same. You know, there's a lot of strange ways that people put it, but they're one and the same. And the Emerald Tablets, they touch down on all these principles. They talk about all these, and the Emerald Tablets have they have so many wonderful tidbits of awesome information that I just don't think that if you're interested in alchemy that you could pass it up. It's amazing, and it's this very short read, and you can get books out there that have really great translations alongside the read where everything is clarified really well. Or you could just watch YouTube videos. There's plenty of people who have broken down the Emerald Tablets, which basically, it's not some kind of like weirdly religious text. It's very straightforward and just talks about really things that we can relate to. And that's what the 7 principles are just universal laws. So a lot of people call it the Hermetic principle kind of way as immutable, meaning these laws can't be broken. They cannot really be broken. These are laws that govern not just humans, but plants and the rocks and the stars and the subtle energies. It governs the intuitive sense as much as it governs the logical sense. It governs everything. However, these natural laws can be overcome, but only. And this is not something that's common. So this wouldn't be a focal point of yours until you fully have understood the laws and put them into practice and actually become so deeply understanding of all this, so deeply, in, the one, you'd have to be really one with the Christ consciousness, because he obeyed all these laws and knew them and preached them, to be able to transcend them. And so the laws can only really be overcome by a higher level of consciousness. Higher meaning higher than the laws would mean your consciousness would need to transcend the general universal consciousness. It's a very rare thing, so keep that in mind. Here we go. List them off. 7. The first principle is mentalism. 2nd, correspondence. 3rd, vibration. 4th, polarity. 5th, rhythm. 6, cause and effect. And 7, gender. The 8th hidden one being the all-encompassing circle of what the guy in the video, he likes to call it care, but I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but I just feel like it's a very concentrated level of consciousness and allowance, which is this liquid mercurial line between the yin and the yang, the perfect subtle flow that can go right in between the black and the white in the perfect balance, to just, that's when I think that you can ascend and just beam off the earth, if you get right in there. It doesn't happen to many people that I've been able to find out, but so rumors that it has. So keep trying. I'm going to. Okay, let's break it down. Mentalism. Everything is a manifestation of the mind. Thoughts create things and events or conditions. Everything in the universe, in fact, the universe is a manifestation of mind, of, if you like to call it, a manifestation of God's mind. If you don't like the word God, universe is a manifestation of, fill in the blanks, mind, a mind space. All is mental, all is mind. It takes thought for anything to happen. Anything that has happened came from within, came from the thought. Nothing happens that isn't thought about. And I really challenge you to come up with a really good argument that you could fully, challenge this with, because that would be fascinating to me. In my opinion, when I say this, when I'm doing all this and when I'm talking, I'm waiting for anything to challenge my thoughts so that I might be able to challenge myself and come up with something new. But mentalism seems pretty solid to me, because what you think is what you manifest. If you are unconscious in your thoughts, then you're still unconsciously manifesting through your unconscious thoughts. That's when a lot of chaos can come into your life. So having a really good relationship with your thoughts, and in fact, this is why meditation is really key to a lot of control, is because you in meditation have an intention of being able to detach, observe, and grow a relationship with your thought process. Your thoughts are not you. So many people get really caught up in thinking and believing that what they think is really their thing. And really, a lot of your thoughts, if not so many or most, that's not you. This is so much stimuli and shit. And unless you've really cultivated the art of mentalism, of controlling in a allowing way, I know we'll get to polarity a little bit later, but it is kind of a paradox. But being able to control your thoughts in a very allowing, letting go way, that is when you will be able to manifest powerfully. That is when you will be able to take control of your life and start to direct it where you want it to, by being able to understand how your thoughts work. I want to bring up that maybe people who are experienced with psychedelics and have come to the realization that psychedelics change things around, and when you're thinking during the psychedelic process, you can really experience a lot of chaos and hard experiences mentally, until you are able to control the thought process within that. And even at one point, if anybody ever does any, so let's call it mushrooms are great. If you're doing some psilocybins and you say are having a hard time, if you have the capacity to sit and control your thoughts enough to be able to quiet them and to silence in a way, so you should be doing this ahead of time. You should be learning how to control your thoughts before you do this. And you let your thoughts subside and you just feel into what's going on. What I've found is that there's a feeling that kind of goes in this wave pattern, like this. There's like a lull and then a peak, and then a lull and a peak. So if you attach any kind of thoughts which provoke feelings and emotions, if you attach thoughts to it, say you're having some negative thoughts, you're gonna go, oh, fuck this, fuck that, and then it's at the peaks, it's really gonna amplify those thoughts and emotions, and you can have a very, very difficult time based upon that you are having bad thoughts and you're not really in control of the feeling of this, and you're going to just be in like this crazy rhythmic wave of chaos because of your thought process. You step back and you just allow the feelings to come through with no thoughts. It's as simple as just it's a feeling. It's a rise and fall, which would go to another principle here of rhythm. It's just a rise and fall, and that you can actually have much more enjoyable experience in your hallucinogenic trip, your journey, or in life by not attaching thoughts and feelings to the rhythms. Okay? All right, so that's mentalism. Control your thoughts, you can control your reality. That's very, very fucking true. That's why it's not, coincidence that this is the first principle. All right, second principle is correspondence. Now, correspondence, as said so many times, as above, so below. The macrocosm to the microcosm. What does this mean? It means that anything that happens in the big is really a reflection of what happens in the small. Anything that's happening in the small level is really exactly happening the same exact way as the big. And it's just the measurement that we use that we've been able to measure that this is so true. I mean, what happens in in the solar system happens in the galaxy, which happens at the atomic level. So from the atom, our bodies, what's happening inside of us, happens in the galaxy with the planets, which also happens in the whole solar system, with the whole, okay, I messed that up. But I think you guys know what I mean. What happens inside our bodies in the atomic level happens on the galactic level, which is the planets in our little solar system, which then in the galaxy reflects itself with its own big clusters of things, and this all comes together as a bigger part. And so another thing to think about right here is that the universe is, and everything is kind of a hologram. Hologram is something that's kind of like projected through and makes a 3D image. Now, if you cut a hologram into 4 pieces and you looked at those pieces, you're not going to get 4 pieces that have on each piece 1/4 of an image, 1/4 of an image, and 1/4 of an image. No, you're going to get one whole image, the same image on each piece. Each one piece out of the 4 is going to contain the whole image, but just on a smaller scale. So that shows us that everything is just a smaller little version of the big, instead of just a halved, if you cut me in half as a person, yes, I mean, really, if I was cut in half, you'd have 2 of me over here, but really, even inside my body, the right side, all my guts, my bones, my muscle tissue, all that looks exactly the same and does the same kind of thing as what's going on the other side too. But that's kind of a bad example, but it's mostly just the quantum physics idea that everything is just a reflection, and it's the measurement of it that is the difference. Other than that, everything works similarly, which is brilliant. Alrighty. Oh, also in there, fractals. If you don't know what fractals are, which mathematically Fibonacci sequence, that spiral thing, is everywhere. And fractals are basically that is what shows us the course. Everything is made of fractals. Little pieces of what we are is what is in us, which is what goes out of us and what we build on and what is going on. It's fractals. It's a fractal universe. Number 3, vibration. Everything vibrates. Nothing sits still. Nothing. This cannot be new information, so I'm assuming y'all know that everything is pure vibratory energy. How do we know? If you can get anything close enough, it is not sitting still. Everything is kind of floating. Nothing is solid. Nothing's sitting on anything. Everything just kind of floats around and kind of bumps up against each other in this kind of like vibratory way, so that the vibration, depending on it, like holds us in this supposed solidity. So nothing rests, and we can think of this as in like the universe is a spiritual experience. The universe is spiritual, experiencing solidity. So, we have this like etheric kind of sense of like this beautiful vibratory sense, and it's an illusion that we are experiencing a stillness, a solidity. And where I really wanted to go with this is like when we talk about meditation and shit, which I really want to continue to say that meditation is different for everybody. I ain't sitting there going like arms folded like lotus, like not thinking. Meditation, cliche word, is being in the now fully. So whether it's surfing or running, whether it's painting, anything where you don't need to think because you are, you're not, and this is why I think that meditation can be a misleading, like the traditional sense of meditation. It can be not misleading, but a difficult way for people to get to this space, because it's actually one of the best ways when you fully are able to silence the mind, sit quietly, utilize the breath, because that's all part of it. It's the best. It's the strongest exercise for it. But I don't like to advertise that people should do that way, because it really discourages a lot of people, including myself, from trying to meditate, because it's difficult. It's like trying to get a bunch of people who don't know any Spanish to go to Spanish 301. It's like, well, you jump in and there's immersion. Like, yeah, immersion will happen, but some people will just be everybody learns differently, So meditation would be finding that thing that takes you out of your thoughts, where you can be absolutely unthinking and just doing. So something like surfing, where you're really engulfed in what you're doing. It's very there and you're in it. You're not thinking, you're feeling there. That's meditation. So sitting still enough to feel, you're going to be able to slow down the stuff that even seems solid to you, which is really vibrating. We all really intuitively feel and know this. And if you're in meditational mode, I think that you are able to observe better, even with your eyes closed. You're able to observe better because you're slowing things down. A clarity on things, a clarity is going to come to you about how things are during meditation, because you will be able to see the vibration slow in a way, and you'll see the parts clearly. Number 4, polarity. Everything has an opposite. Everything is identical. So there's the only difference between opposites and these identical things is the varying degrees in which they vibrate, really, but they're varying degrees. So all paradoxes are reconciled, and every extreme meets. This is where we find that example of when you are so cold that you feel hot. Extremes meet at one point because they're so like in their way. And so when you think about everything having a polarity, this is where the non-judgment shit has to come in. Because if you are seeing somebody who's extremely hateful, and you are super judging them out, you have to wonder why it is that their hate is bothering you so much. Because honestly, if it bothers you that much, you probably hate them because they hate, and that's a form of hate itself. You're already vibrating there. And even though if your hate stems from that you love so much that you think that, that's so wrong, you're coming back around. And I actually love the polarity example because it really does shine a light on people's judgment, which can be so hurtful to every aspect of life and humanity, because judgment really puts rules on things and wants to separate and make this dual nature even more dual by separating and pushing things to the extremes, when really we want to come to the middle. And to be able to come to the middle, you have to allow. You cannot force people in the middle. That's just ridiculous. You're going to force like a square a square peg in a round hole. That just doesn't work, So you can force people toward the edges. You push them out, and what happens is that those edges are so extreme that they're extremely similar, and it causes a really unnatural effect. Number 5, rhythm. Everything flows. There's a rise. There's a fall. As the pendulum swings, there's a to and a fro, forward and a backward. The ocean is a great example of rhythm. The ocean ebbs, the ocean flows, one example, not my own, is to know how to utilize this to our advantage. There's always going to be, some days, how they say when it rains, it pours. It's like, it seems like things do go in rhythms. It's like, why is things so good now? And then why are everything so bad now? Why is everything so good now? Why is everything, it goes in those rhythms. Once you are able to sit back and observe the rhythms, look into astrology. Watch the planets. They all do this. They all know what's going on. You watch the planets, they'll affect you. The ocean, we're water. We're affected by the tide. We're affected by the moon. There's an ebb and a flow. There's a wax on, wax off, Now, the example here is that if you want to go out and take a boat from the beach, from the shore, and you want to get out to the ocean, it's going to be a fucking struggle if you do it while the tide is coming in, because there's going to be crashing waves. It's going to take you maybe, 4, 5 to 10 times longer, and in fact you might get hurt. You could ruin your boat. This is going to cause a lot of problems if you're not conscious enough to know that if you just waited until the ocean wasn't, the tide wasn't in and the tide went out and everything was smooth, then you just go out there and you zip out there. So knowing the rhythms of things can really, really help you get into things faster, can help you manifest faster if you know the rhythm of something that you are interested in. Get to know its rhythm. If you want to manifest money and you're work in the stock markets, you need to get to know the rhythms of your particular stocks, like what they do. The algorithms, these things are real. You get to know them and you utilize your knowledge there, you will be able to quantum leap through things. So rhythm is very important. It's very important to know that, as a woman, I have a cycle. I know that every so often or whatever, I'm going to have to deal with my cycle. And so if I was, when I've been unaware of that, or when I'm not, when a woman isn't conscious of that enough, it can really fuck up her day, and she could be like, what? Or her week, actually, and it can also cause problems. If she's aware of it, she could flow with her flow and actually utilize not only that, but get to know it better and go deeper into it. And there's wisdom and knowledge in that. So that's that. Number 6, cause and effect. Probably the most direct universal law to us in our everyday life that we just have to deal with. And if this too was utilized or understood and then really followed as law and utilized to its fullest, we could really save ourselves so much damage, not just us as individuals, but as a collective on this mama earth. Cause and effect is the rule of karma. Every cause has an effect. Nothing is chance. People say if you call it chance or luck, you're ignoring law. It's not. There's no coincidence. There's no chance. None of that. everything comes from the mental realm. Even if you really think it's chance, then you were probably unconsciously manifesting something. You're unconsciously manifesting something which caused something, and the effect that comes back to you, and you're like, what the fuck is that? You weren't paying attention to your thoughts. You know, you haven't developed a relationship or gotten to know your thoughts. So cause and effect is this idea that it's a law. It's a law. If you decide to go to the football game and not bring, I don't wear sunscreen. I think ahead of time and get my base tan. But if you don't wear your sunscreen and you're, a light, pale, freckled person, and you just go and you're like, you get a nasty sunburn, and you're like, fuck, this is horrible. And you miss a bunch of work because you're in like excruciating pain. And then you're just so pissed off because you're like, this shit always happens to me. Everything bad happens to me. The thing is, you forgot that you had a choice to put on sunscreen or a long sleeve shirt or a hat or an umbrella or get your base tan ahead of time. You had a choice, and that you just have been, same thing as any of these principles. If you're unconscious of your thoughts, of that there's rhythms in everything, that things have an opposite, and that things are going to always, everything is going to be a reflection of whatever. If you're unconscious of these things, you're going to experience most likely chaotic or negative effects. And you can't blame anybody but yourself for being unconscious. So cause and effect is going to be the biggest law in our lives, because this is what we think of as a free will universe. It is. We have the freedom to choose what we want to do. The only condition on the free will that we have is that it is still governed by law. If you ignore the law of the cause and effect, if you ignore putting on the sunscreen, you're still going to get a sunburn. Just because you have the free will not to put on sunscreen doesn't mean you're not going to get a sunburn. You cannot ignore law. So oftentimes we find ourselves stuck in the symptoms, and we don't like to take responsibility for our actions that caused the negative effect or the effect that we did not like. Alrighty then. So the last principle is the principle of gender. Now, this is one that always gets just floated over. People just like gender, masculine, feminine. And it's true. Like, we come out either male or female or something, in between. But these components are just the base components. We're either male or female. Now, when it comes to this is actually the masculine and feminine manifests on all planes of existence. Manifests on, the mental lane, the physical lane, the spiritual lane, the emotional, all of it. It manifests on all levels. It's kind of like the duality. It's kind of the polarity. It's the course. Well, maybe it's not the correspondence, but it's a lot of things. And in the mental realm, it's the left and the right brain. We all have male and female things to us, not just in our brain, but in our physicality. But in our brain, it's really pronounced because, say, the left brain is the masculine, it's the logical part. The right brain is the feminine, it's the intuitive, creative part. Now, these parts are really different in a lot of ways, but they work together well to create a whole. Now, if you want your mind to be whole, you must be able to bridge and to have these two genders within your mind, these two sides of your mind, the left and the right, that really they really assume the masculine and feminine. You must have them coexist. A lot of people go through their lives in a lot of turmoil because they have too much masculine, too much logic, too much, and they're ignoring their intuition, and they get themselves into a lot of scenarios where they maybe are unfeeling or really just oblivious to certain things because they're just logical, practical. Now, on the opposite spectrum, there's a lot of people who are really dreamy and just like too sensitive and too frightened in this, and never utilize their logic and their ability to be strong in this other way, and are too sensitive. So it just goes both ways. And to be able to have a very, very, in fact, the gender thing to me is so important because it's not something we really get taught a lot, to embrace our, like, as females here, I don't get, in fact, you know what, I feel like I'm overly masculine female, and I need to balance my femininity into that masculine aspect that really manifests for me through, well, it's all throughout my chart. I have a lot of masculine planets and things like this. I've got a lot of masculinity, but I do feel very feminine. I love my femininity, but I need to find a balance, but as growing up, my mother really, I love my mother, but she just didn't understand the concept fully. She really just pressed the feminine. She just pressed, like, you need to wear dresses, you need to be feminine and docile and like this. And I think I pulled away toward the masculine because it was already in my chart. It was already there, and I just seceded away from wanting to be told what to do, like any kind of no logical whatever person. Don't tell me what to do, and kind of let the masculine override me. And so in our culture, sometimes there are mothers or fathers or whatever who press the feminine on the feminine, or press the masculine too much on the on the men, on the masculine. And there's a lot of men who you really would benefit from embracing their feminine. Luckily, I live in a place where men are allowed to do that, and it's really accepted more than other places. But I really genuinely reach out to men because I can relate, because I have that. I kind of have that a little bit. I have this sort of masculine side, which I'm working with my feminine. I am. But I really encourage men to, and really, you got to think about it. It's not about being the feminine, it's about embracing the parts of you that want to be emotional, that you repress. Anything that you repress that has something to do with the feminine, you need to look at that. And same thing with females. Anything that you repress that has to do with maybe the feminine or the masculine, if you repress masculine things, or like me, if I repress some of my femininity, I need to you got to bring it all in balance. All right, y'all. So that is pretty much what I wanted to do, was to really spell it out for you, because I haven't done that all the way before. And I should have, because this is why, this right here, what I just told you, is why I'm doing these videos, because this resonated with me so much. I am not a dogmatic, well, I think I'm not. I'm saying that I'm not. I think that I'm not. So I think that's in the process of mentalism, that's probably got to be on the right path. I don't like dogmatic things. I like to gather a lot of information and pick what feels right to me. I'm not going to say I follow, I love Hermeticism as thoughts and then as ideas and philosophies. I'm not saying that I'm a Hermeticist, I don't even know who is a Hermeticist. If it can't be a religion, like whatever. But I do feel like I resonate with these laws. These feel like universal laws to me. So I really wanted to bring them up to you guys, because this is why I even ever got into alchemy in the first place. And this is the key to alchemy. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is that 8th dealio that's going to be in that guy's video that I'll post is, is he called it care. It's the 8th principle. It's about, he talks about it being what you give your attention to. It's different from compassion and love. It's not that. It's about what you give your attention to, what you grow, your discernment in that. He says by ignoring the negative, you ensure that the negative grows. I think that could be more fully, deeply, dissected. What you give energy to, the proper energy to, is what grows. And I agree with this. I do know that the last thing I really want to say is that there's amazing idea within the sacred geometry shit about something that they're now calling E8, which is kind of like transcendent the string theory shit. And it's really what they're thinking is like the theory of everything. But really, when that guy said, the eighth principle, it immediately made me think of E8. Go look up E8 and the theory of everything. It's just this geometric shape that they really, I was talking about shapes last video, that they describe that really constructs everything. This is a brand new kind of scientific thought kind of shit that I like to say would be worthwhile checking out. So I'm going to attribute the eighth principle, the hidden one, to E8. As always, much love, guys. Have a great day.